Welcome back to Coding the Cinema, and today I'm starting a series called Western Wednesday, and I wanted to start this series by discussing 5 reasons, among many, that you should still care about Westerns in 2024 and should watch them if you don't already do that. And the first that I wanted to bring up, using The Far Country as an example, is just the literal physical beauty of these films. So many of them have had great shots taken within national parks. I mentioned in my first video Canyon Passage and Crater Lake. Here we have some great shots in Canada of glaciers and so forth. The John Ford movies really cover Monument Valley if you're into that. And the list goes on and on as far as spectacular visual beauty of the West. If you are a fan of traveling to national parks, state parks, other NPS sites, things like that, then I wouldn't be surprised if this became a favorite genre for you, because that's a good chunk of the reason why I watch these movies. I go on road trips pretty frequently to the West, and it always feels like when I can pop in one of these movies, especially if it's like a cold January day, that I'm sort of back there in a way, even if it's not like Yellowstone on the screen, it still kind of feels like returning to some place like that. Along with that, the wildlife, just the way these are often shot, that isn't a reason enough for you to watch Westerns if you don't already do that. So that was my first reason I wanted to cover, probably a pretty obvious one. The second is sort of timely to what I think millennials and Zoomers seem to like in their entertainment, and that is these timeless anti-heroes, such as The Man with No Name here and the Fistful of Dollars trilogy. All right, this is the second film, the one I watched most recently, For a Few Dollars More, and this has 2 anti-heroes in it, Lee Van Cleef's character and Clint Eastwood. And so often in Westerns, the morality, you might think, okay, there's good guy, bad guy, sheriff, outlaw, and sometimes it's not as simple as that, especially whenever you have these like bounty hunter characters. You can find some of the best examples of anti-heroes in this genre, and the last time I checked out TV shows, I mean, they're full of intriguing anti-heroes. So if you're into that craze, you like that sort of gray area, good guy, bad guy, I think that dipping into these sort of Westerns is going to be powerful for you. I mean, I know I'm going to cover in this series, I'm hoping to cover, for example, Red Dead Redemption 2, the video game film references. And I remember how popular Arthur Morgan was as a character. And I mean, that's just video games, right? It extends to books and other media. So definitely if you're into anti-hero characters, Westerns, especially this trilogy, it's so good. Now I just want to watch this again. One part of this genre that is heavily explored is this concept of the Western and the picture as a sort of morality play in films like the Oxbow incident. So this is literally just it's a Western crime trial courtroom movie, really, is what it is. And Henry Fonda is in a number of pictures like this where there's some moral dilemma that a group of people must face and come to a reasonable or semi-reasonable conclusion, perhaps a makeshift conclusion. And I have found that watching so many Westerns over the years, I've been faced with some of the best moral dilemmas in movies that are Westerns. Because the Westerns that I've seen involve so much exploration and figuring out how to deal with literally a new territory or new land, or how we treat others when we steal their land, or how others treat us when we steal their land, or any of the things that Westerns cover. This is just a territory that comes with the territory, okay? And I think you'll find that if you have this idea that Westerns are simplistic, like I said, sheriff versus bad guy, that's not really the case with most of the best ones. There's so much to consider in terms of choices and why a character may or may not do something. And the Oxbow incident is certainly one example of that. There are many others that I'm hoping to cover in this series, but I did want people who aren't aware to understand that Westerns are pretty complex when they're well made. And they become just as good as some of your best black and white dramas, some of your best epics. So thinking about that aspect is important. And something sort of literally modern is that I believe that there's still a lot of unexplored territory in this genre that I wish more filmmakers would approach. And one example that both does and does not do this is Old Henry, a Western I will surely cover in this series. You may recognize Tim Blake Nelson from O Brother, Where Art Thou, who is just an old man who comes into some trouble when a dead body shows up near his property. And this one has sort of good guys, sort of bad guys, sort of anti-hero, all those themes, but it's shot on a much smaller scale than, say, The Far Country. It's much more claustrophobic and confined than this movie is. And so even though plenty of classic Western themes were here, when I watched this multiple times, I plan on watching it again soon, it still finds a way to break through that territory by focusing on sort of a central stage, more like a play. And I like that. I feel like there's so much Western horror that could be very successful here. You know, I mentioned Red Dead Redemption 2 earlier. I'd love to see a good film of that. I think about all of the people on Instagram, social media, YouTube who are getting into these public lands that I've talked about with national parks. I feel like there's a Western there. I feel like we could do more with a found footage movie that sort of plays on certain Western elements like Willow Creek. I can go on and on with ideas, but there's still so much to be explored, and I would love for the general public or people who are maybe film fans but think, Westerns are kind of outdated, to sort of scoop up the genre again and see what great filmmakers can come up with. So, point 4 and point 5, and this applies to those of you who really like to pick up physical media. There's some good physical media releases coming out now for Westerns. I know that this is one of the most popular, Django, which I have reversed the sleeve on. And it's worth getting in, if you're already collecting a lot of random 4Ks, collector's editions, Blu-rays, like if you're into that sort of territory, I think you're going to find that you're going to enjoy what Westerns do. I have seen multiple reviewers, some of them pretty big on the YouTube charts, praise this movie, for example, for its stunning visual prowess and its great themes and its well-developed characters. And I think, like I said, like I just got the Shootist and the 10 Star from Arrow limited editions, and I reviewed the 10 Star on the channel. So if you're into the physical media collecting scene, this is a genre for you as well. So those were just 5 reasons I thought of immediately, just pulling films off of my shelf. What do you think, those of you that like Westerns? Is there something that I'm missing here, big time? Is there something you want to add? If you have reservations about watching Westerns and not branching out to new territory, let me know what those might be in the comments. Until next week on Western Wednesday and or my next video, we'll see you later.